Now, it's time for the Neighborhood Connection, sponsored by The Wall.
You know, we had a great question come in about a kitchen tune-up. How do we adjust these hinges on these new cabinets? And now most of the cabinets that come out these days that you get have this style of hinge in it. And let me show you. This is a bloom or a concealed hinge. And these go on many of the frameless cabinets. Even those ones you have to put together with the little pieces, they're that same type of hinge. Now this one here, when you look at it, has got a soft close function, so it closes softly. And then here's the little secret on these. See this little notch right here? This is how you turn that soft close off. So when you click that, now you can turn that off and on. So it's really cool how that works. That helps you adjust these things. Now let's talk about screwdrivers for a second here. This is your regular Phillips screwdriver. It will work for these, but they actually take a special European screwdriver called a Posey. And this is very similar, but it doesn't round out the tips of this. So if you have a lot of them to adjust, this could be good for the toolbox. So here's the thing. If we look at this cabinet door right here, we'll see that we've got a wider gap than the top, and that this is at a different plane than this. This is too far forward. And then, so this door is kind of crooked sideways. So let's work on these 16-way adjustable hinges here. So this is the in and out, and then this here are what take us up and down. So this looks like it needs to come down a little bit, so we're just going to do that. And then the big one here on the back is this one here. This is the one that moves the door front and back. So I'm going to bring the door back a little bit, and I have to just keep opening and shutting the door. I get one adjustment like this. This is pretty equal here. So we've got that set up. Now I'm going to get the door this way, which is front and back. And we're going to go a little bit at a time and then just start going and comparing these. I still got more to go, so let's just keep going. And the farther I bring that out, the more adjustment there is. Now we're starting to get close. This door is a little bit down, so I'm going to bring it up just a little bit. Sometimes you have to loosen both hinges. This one here, since it's a big enough door, I'm just working on the bottom one first. And I'm just going to keep going here. Now that's pretty good. Looks like this is out a little bit here. See how this is tight? So I'm going to make sure I've got a glass hitting there. Make sure I don't have something else hitting. Still got that, so I'm going to bring this backside out a little bit and keep bringing this forward. And then there's this other one here. So I'm going to just keep fine-tuning that. And this is how you do this around the entire kitchen. Now, the one thing you've got to be careful with is sometimes doors warp with seasons. So you could have a hardwood door like this, especially if it's a big solid piece of wood. You might have to do this a couple times a year because in the summertime, you have different humidity than in the wintertime, especially in our area. So those doors will move a little bit. So just because they don't line up doesn't mean that it won't be that way next year. So let them move with the humidity and the weather. And the other thing is too, if these cabinets were not put in correctly, these were installed right, which is great. But if somebody comes up and you're installing them and they screw it to the wall and they didn't shim it right, you might never get this perfect. So it's a fight that you're going to have. And so really, I'm going to get one little last adjustment on it, and this door is going to be just, I think, where I want it right here. That's pretty good. Now, some of the other tricks that you have in here, sometimes these, by the way, have a cover on them like this. There'll be a cover that snaps in. You just need to pop that cover off. They come right off. And if you've got a door that shuts too closely, too fast with the soft close, the smaller doors do that. That's where that switch comes in, and that works. Now, if you want to take the doors off because you're cleaning or things like that, on this style of concealed hinge, there's a hidden switch back here that you can release. And now I've taken that hinge off by just pulling this right here. And then what you do is you get this first little piece, which is this first rocker right here. You'll grab this on the clip right here and then rotate this back, and I'll show you how. So this comes in like this, and now it's snapped in. It's good. And now you've got a hinge that's actually adjusted, and you can chase this around the entire kitchen. What a great question come in about power tool batteries. Let me see if I can answer those questions for you today. Now, it doesn't really matter what brand you have. There's a lot of great brands out there. But for instance here, this is one of the larger voltage sets out there. So we've got the Milwaukee 18, I've got the Bosch 18, and the DeWalt 20. Now these are really the same voltage, and I'll show you this in a minute. But the secret is don't really pay so much attention about the voltage. It's the amp hours. The amp hours is the big part of this battery. And that's what makes the difference. That's the horsepower behind the vehicle you're trying to use. That's your power tool. Now, for instance here, this is a 2-hour amp hour battery, and this is a 5. We've got a 2, and then we've got a 9. So really, you need to match the amp hours with the project you're going to tackle. These little ones are great in low power applications like those new electric nailers and stuff. Those work really well for that. But I'll show you what happens when you try to drill with them. This is where it gets a little interesting here. So you got to be careful. One of the problems with using a battery that's too small is it doesn't have the power, so it can really kick back. So you got to be a little careful with that. But for instance here, it just doesn't have the power to do the job. So if I change this battery out here and go to the 9, which is more than enough, if I go back here, offset my hole a little bit, more than enough power to do the job. I can make a lot of sawdust with that. And so it's all about the amp hours. Now what's interesting is if you take this 20 here and compare it up to, for instance, this one right here, which is our Milwaukee. Let me plug these leads in and I'll put a test meter on this and show you the voltage. This is what kind of gets interesting. And why these are all the same, because they kind of take the same battery packs inside of it. So inside these batteries, you have a bunch of just little round battery packs. And of course, there's a lot of computers. Those little computer boards in there actually put the right power to the tool, which is why they actually put out more power than a plug-in tool these days. So if I look here at this 20 volt, I have 18.36. That's kind of cool. So that's a fully charged battery. If I come over here to the DeWalt, we'll plug that in here. There's the positive, there's the negative. And I've got 19.8. So really, it's not so much about the voltage, even though that's a 20 and an 18. It's just marketing. They're both great tools. There's nothing wrong with that. There's the answer on finding the right batteries for the right project. It's all about the amp hours. Now you can get back to work. If you've got a question you'd like me to answer on the show, scan the QR code on your screen now. You may even make it on a future edition of Around the House Northwest.